Hello, good morning everyone. As we all know, the Queen has passed away, and the Queen Elizabeth II was the longest serving monarch in the British history. So apart from all the typical news about the funeral and how she died and who was there, who was not there, I thought it might be a good idea to talk about some of the more light-hearted things about her that people don't really know. So I came across this article which talks about some curious facts about the Queen, which might make you think a little bit. So Queen Elizabeth II has passed away at the age of 96. As we know, the announcement has saddened the nation, with droves of royal fans and celebrities taking to social media to share their condolences. As the world mourns the loss of the longest reigning monarch in British history, many of us are fondly looking back at her life. From her loving relationship with Prince Philip, who passed away last year at the age of 99, to her most memorable fashion moments and iconic feminist moves, there is so much to remember about Her Majesty, and there is still more to learn too. So, despite being perhaps one of the most famous people on the planet, surprisingly there are still plenty of lesser known and unexpected facts about Queen Elizabeth II, from world records to her role in World War II. So let's get started. Did you know the Queen did not need a driving license to drive? Yes, unlike the rest of us who have to take a test, or more than one test, in order to legally drive a car, Her Majesty followed no such rule. In fact, the monarch is the only person in the UK who did not need to have a driver's license in order to drive on public roads. Not only that, but the Queen did not hold a passport either. That's because both documents were issued in her name, meaning she was not required to have either, a privilege held by the sovereign alone. Next, the Queen was better travelled than any British monarch before her. During her reign, she visited over 100 countries, including Canada 22 times and France 13 times. She also owned a Greggs pastry shop. Greggs is a famous pastry shop in the UK. Through the British Crown's state empire, the Queen owned, or partly owned, 14 retail parks and 3 shopping centres, one of which included Gallagher's retail park in Cheltenham, where you can enjoy a very royal Greggs. The Queen had her own private ATM. While it is rare that Queen would need access to cash, she did have a private ATM in the basement of Buckingham Palace. Courtesy of Coates Bank, the ATM is strictly for members of the royal family only. Fancy one yourself? Well, the banking at Coates is free of charge as long as you have £1.3 million to pop into your account. That sadly rules us out then. The Queen volunteered as a truck driver during World War II. Before taking the throne from her father, the then Princess Elizabeth volunteered as a truck driver and mechanic during World War II, making her the first female member of the royal family to serve in the military. And then you have a lot of pictures of her working as a mechanic as well. The Queen bought her wedding dress with ration coupons. Speaking of World War II, due to post-war austerity measures in the UK, the then Princess Elizabeth had to use clothing ration coupons to purchase the material for her wedding dress. According to the British Heritage, the government allowed her 200 extra ration coupons to make the purchase. The Queen washed her own dishes at times. Given that she was more often associated with crown jewels than a pair of marigolds, you might be surprised to find out that on many occasions Her Majesty actually washed her own dishes. Speaking to the Telegraph, royal expert and author Harry Mount recalled that a former royal courtier once told him, "I was at a shooting lunch. At the end of the lunch, I heard someone say, 'I'll do the washing up.' I turned around and there was the Queen in her yellow washing up gloves." Then, the Queen sent out 300,000 cards to her royal fans. As part of her role as head of the British monarchy, Queen Elizabeth sent over 300,000 congratulatory cards to people celebrating their 100th birthdays and over 900,000 messages to couples making their diamond wedding anniversary. The The Queen owned over 30 corgis. It is no secret that Queen loved her corgis, the dogs, but it may come as a surprise to learn that she had over 30 of them in her lifetime, even having as many as 9 at one time. Most of Her Majesty's corgis were descended from her first corgi, Susan, who was gifted to her on her 18th birthday in 1944. Some of her other corgis included Candy, Lizzie and Monty. The Queen sat for over 200 official portraits. In world of selfies and Snapchat, sitting for a painted portrait isn't something that many of us will be familiar with. But the same can't be said for Her Majesty, who sat for over 200 official portraits, both painted and photographed during her reign. The first ever official portrait of Queen was commissioned back in 1933 when she was just 7 years old. The Queen bathed every morning in 7 inches of water. Yep, sounds very specific, we know, but turns out Her Majesty was a very specific woman. In fact, every morning whilst she drank her cup of breakfast tea, the Queen's maid would run her a bath. The bath had to be exactly the right temperature, tested with a wooden case thermometer, and no more than 7 inches of water. The Queen opened Sydney Opera House. When you think of Australia, it is likely the first image to pop up in your head is that of the Sydney Opera House. It is only fitting then that the most recognisable building in the country was opened by one of the most widely revered women in the world. The monarch opened the now iconic Australian landmark on 20th of October 1973. The Queen carried out tens of thousands of engagements. Across her 70-year reign, Queen Elizabeth carried out a whopping 21,000 royal engagements. That's very busy. The Queen sent a message to the moon to congratulate Apollo 11 astronauts on the first moon landing on the 21st of July 1969. A pre-recorded message from Her Majesty was deposited on the moon in a metal container. And lastly, the Queen spoke fluent French. Her Majesty spoke fluent French and frequently used the language during audiences and royal engagement when visiting. These are some of her records. Her Majesty was the longest reigning monarch in British history. The Queen held the Guinness World Record for being the oldest British Queen. Her Majesty's great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, previously held the record at age 81. Queen Elizabeth II held the record for most currencies featuring the same individual. And lastly, the monarch held the record for being the wealthiest queen in the world. So there you have it, some of the interesting facts about Queen Elizabeth. I hope you like this podcast. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube and give me a follow if you can on Spotify. Do check out my other episodes and on YouTube other episodes with subtitles too. If you want to listen to the transcript, you'll find it in the description. Take care for now. Peace.